All right. In a moment, we're going to have Midas versus DJ for the semifinals of SC Ultimecia. Go DJ. Uh, this should be, I think, a pretty interesting game. I really enjoyed, I think the last video I put up was some Midas Akiyama 3-minute games. And I think there were a bunch of mistakes in those games, obviously. It was 3 minutes, that's fine. But I thought Midas did, and I think does, and has done throughout this tournament, a really interesting job of he plays highly combative moves. In that match, they were both trying to play creatively and do interesting things. They weren't necessarily trying to make the absolute best moves. Um, but he does a really interesting job. He's gone for the 8-9-8s. We should look at hands. So is DJ. I'm glad to see that. I would also go 8-9-8s here. I think those are very, very powerful cards. Um, but I think something he's done throughout this tournament really well is navigated to. It's not that he's mitigating risk. He's playing combatively, right? He's not necessarily playing like me, though there were the only times where I predicted moves correctly were times where Midas made the move I was looking at. Akiyama never made moves I was considering. But something he's done this tournament and in that match that I thought was interesting is just if we consider each position to kind of have a score from 0 to 100, where 100 is like first turn's definitely going to win, and 0 is second turn's definitely going to win, and 50 is it's balanced. Maybe balanced means definitely a tie, maybe it means 50% chance first turn wins, 50% chance second turn wins. But something where there is even chance of a good result for both players. And then like 75 is halfway between a first turn win and a tie, and 25 is halfway between a second turn win and a tie. I think Midas is really good at defending positions that are like a 40 from his perspective, where like he's a little bit worse, but it's not gone off the deep end, and he finds a way to navigate. Maybe even from worse than that. I think he's had some really nice, this position is difficult, and he finds a way to make it work. DJ has really just consistently put in good games. His match with Delhi in the last tournament was great. Um, he just put in 5 really strong games. He eventually lost. It was Delhi. Delhi wins the tournament. Like, okay, that's a match you can lose. I think his general feel for the game is very good. And sometimes the calculation doesn't quite come right in the kind of turn 4-5 area. And compared to someone like Seto, who so reliably calculates so accurately, there's just positions where he's winning but doesn't convert or has the tie and doesn't hold. But I think like aside those spots, he's basically just played phenomenally in the return without real error. Um, and he has lost twice already to Midas in the return. This is actually the third time they're paired against each other. But he was winning in one of those games, and I think he very clearly has the tools not just to beat Midas, but to have a good shot against anyone. Um, he can very much hold a few ties, and if you give him a chance, he can take it. So Midas is the favorite here today, but I think this match is not a huge advantage to Midas. Even though, Midas is the favorite, Midas has 3 finals already under his belt, and Midas has beaten tougher competition to get here. I think DJ has played very, very well and has incredibly reliably beaten players weaker than him, and has consistently given himself a really good chance to beat stronger players. It just hasn't come through yet. And at some point it will. That doesn't mean we should do like gambler's fallacy and go like, well, it didn't happen the last 3 times. It's guaranteed now, right? But I do think it's coming. Now, one thing about the 8-9-8 surround a 9-9 potential starter like Midas has is if DJ has also gone 8-9-8s, that 9-9 starter is pretty well covered. This is actually, I think, very similar to a hand I ran in the I want to say Nephilim quarterfinals against Acela. Semifinals against Acela. Where I did start 9-4-3-9 and 9, and I had 8-9-8s ready to recapture. Um, the last two cards were a bit different because it was an all level 9 set rather than this split level set where you can use 3 level 9s, no cards with A's on them, a level 8 and a level 7. If we look at the lower level choices, Midases are very much I want to be able to take 9s, and DJs are a little more I want to be able to take a variety of numbers. I think if we look at the hands here, DJs might be a tad more dynamic. Okay, 8, 9, 8, 2, and 1. There is a recapture in 2, and DJ does not have a capture in 2. Okay, so if DJ plays, the capture in 4, Midas is ready to recapture in 2, and he probably should. Not sure why there would be something else all that appealing. 6, 5, 6, 7, and 8 actually is also pretty interesting. Setting up 9, 4, 3, 9, and 7, and 1, 8, 9, 8, and 5. But I think no need to mess with something like that. So DJ's capture, not great, and missing 2 is a cost. So how can we set up 2? 1, 8, 9, 8, and 3 does set up 2, but you don't have 3. And given that you don't have combo play in 4, given that you don't have combo play in either square, 2 or 4, I think you want to be looking for 5, right? It would really be helpful if there was a move in 5. And here it actually really costs that there are these 3 8s to the left. Sometimes we think of like having redundant numbers as a cost because, if they can control that number, if you have 3 8s to the left and they have, say, 6, 7, 6, 5, suddenly anything you're sticking left is a problem. And that can very much be a weakness. But you can also have this kind of weakness where you just can't set up as well against stuff because you only have one number to play off. You don't have a variety of numbers to play off. And so, like, pretty quickly looking at DJ's hand, we can identify there is no 5 setup for 4. Are there 5 setups for 2? Yes, we could go 8, 9, 8, 2, and 2. So that sets up the opponent. What else could we do? 5, 7, 6, 8, and 2 is a little scary because it means your capture in 4 is weak to 5 and you are potentially vulnerable to combos. But 5, 7, 6, 8, and 5 also is a setup move. And is that it? I think that's it. Another way to look at this would be to be like, okay, you've given up a lot of right and, some up-down power. Can I take advantage of that? Can I play in the direction of which you are now weaker? You now have less play. But I don't see an obvious way to do that well. I think this was a good starter, and I think DJ will need to be quite precise to get a good game here. He doesn't have a go next to 8, 9, 8, 2, and 2 or 4. The moves in 5 feel possible but sketchy to me. He does go in 3. So I was worried about 7, 6, 7, 5 in 2 here, right? When it really hurts that we don't have combo play in 1, because if we did, we could dissuade this kind of move. But that looks scary to me, partially because 9, 7, 2, 8 in 4 is now covered by 9, 4, 3, 9, and 5. And we don't have the recapture in 6. So maybe after 7, 6, 7, 5, and 2, you want to play 9, 7, 2, 8 in 5. It looks like we're losing a lot of power here. This seems extremely dangerous to me. I think Midas found a nice starter, and this is actually a really interesting example of a problem of redundant numbers that is not like a kind of end game or middle game problem of just, oh no, I have too many of the same numbers sticking out and they happen to control it. Because Midas doesn't actually control the 8s to the left, right? This isn't a situation where the redundant numbers led to okay, you got swept at the end. That's not what's going to happen here. Midas does not sweep 8s to the left, right? And in fact, sweeping 8s You know, 6 5 6 7 could sweep eights to the right, but in general, if you look at the hands, sweeping eights is not that likely a thing to happen. So having a lot of eights to the left doesn't seem like an inherent cost that way. But it just really reduced the ability to set up different kind of pluses. Incidentally, if you were gonna go in three, maybe 5 7 6 8 made more sense, right? It still sets up two, but it gives you a lot more L options because you have ways to capture back. So, for instance, if you went 5 7 6 8 and two and in three and Midas captured in two, maybe then something like 7 5 8 4 and six would be a possibility. Um, but here we're going to have very limited L choices. On the other hand, if Midas doesn't go for this immediately and you get to block two, maybe you're in good shape. But blocking two with 7 5 8 4 is pretty costly because you flip one and that means you're vulnerable to combos. So you might have to block two with 8 9 8 2. Also, you won't be vulnerable to combos in six. Yeah, this is going to be very dangerous for DJ. As I said, I am rooting for him and I like how he plays. So I am hoping he can find a way to defend this. But this is going to be a tough defense. One important thing is, okay, Midas does take two. I was gonna say if Midas leaves the squares open because 7 6 7 5 is really good in both two and six. It can be really hard to play next to the card in three because it has just such big out-facing stuff. So your only ways to not walk into combos will be 9 7 2 8 and six, and 8 9 8 2 and two, which is a tough life to live. My best guess here was 9 7 2 8 and five. That was what I was trying to hope worked. Much like 9 7 2 8 and 4, though, 9 7 2 8 and 5, there is the possibility of 6 5 6 7 in 9, though I think it is not a very good possibility. Because I think it sets up 9 4 3 9 and 8, and so DJ can play 6, allow 8, and then combo back somewhat in 7. With basically any card in his hand. So my guess is you probably have to try 9 7 2 8 and 5. Unless, like, you can play 9 7 2 8 and 4, draw out 5, and you have some setup against that I haven't noticed. I don't see it. So 9 7 2 8 and 5 seems. Oh, there's also 8 9 8 2. It's a shame that walking into 9 4 3 9 and 6, if you play 8 9 8 2 and 5, you walk into 6, but you actually have a plus wall from 9. It just doesn't do anything. But actually, you're only down 6 4 there, and they have no captures, but they can just go in 4 and they win. Okay, you have no captures either. So what happens if 9 7 2 8 and 5? Do you just lose, or is there play? It's probably just a loss to 1 8 9 8 and 6. So what else is there? Is there a square that if Midas tried to block it, he necessarily sets you up? Sort of. Could you play in 9 here? My idea playing in 9 is anything in 6, you then play 8 9 8 2 and 5 because you cause them to block 6, which is the natural response to 5. And you at least snag 2 cards rather than just 1. You lock in 2 and 6. And if they don't block 6, maybe you have set yourself up to go in 6. And if they block 6 with a 9 to the left, either your 9 7 2 8 or your 7 5 8 4 has a plus in 5. So either way, you have play against that. All right, he goes 9 7 2 8 and 5, which I thought at first was the obligatory move. I don't think 9 worked. It was just a guess. I think this was a spot where DJ couldn't find a satisfactory response to the starter. Very good starter from Midas. And it looks like Midas is going to get the win here with a nice starter. and just one of those times where kind of playing the strong corner maybe wasn't right. Now, of course, if you play 5, 7, 6, 8, and 3, maybe 1, 8, 9, 8 is kind of a dead card in your hand with no up power. I mean, as was clear from my commentary, I had not found a reply to this starter I was happy with. I think this was a nice starter and Dooley got pretty huge advantage. I didn't really calculate out 1, 8, 9, 8, and 6, but you just have so few tools against it. Okay, 1, 8, 9, 8, and 6. You're down 6-4, but they have no right power. Can you just block? You can't quite do it, I don't think. I was thinking, can you just block 9? Like with 5, 7, 6, 8? And that's safe, and either card they put in 7, your 8, 9, 8, 2 can flip something, but actually, sorry, either card they put in 8. But they could put 9, 4, 3, 9, and 8 as well, and then 6, 5, 6, 7 sweeps 8, 9, 8, 2. But it doesn't, and it sweeps 7, 5, 8, 4. Ack. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think this is Midas's game. Presuming that is the case, I want to say congratulations to the semifinalists who didn't advance. I think Sergio had a really fun, awesome tournament. It was just nice to see him making a run. DJ, this is his second semifinals in the return, and he has never lost in a major during the return to someone who isn't a top tier player. So really strong showings by DJ across the board, just consistently. Just needs that, like, if we can get that one little level up, I think he's suddenly breaking through to an extremely formidable player. But I think he's clearly doing very well in tournaments. And Yevon, yeah, Yevon's just killing everything these days. Yevon's been going deep in every tournament. Okay, he goes 1, 8, 9, 8, and 4. I'm sure he calculated this out better than I did. Yeah, there's no tools here, right? You have nothing to attack. Okay, counterpoint. 8, 9, 8, 2, and 9. If Midas goes 6, you play 5, 7, 6, 8, and 8, and you tie. If Midas goes 8, you have a plus and 6, and you win. So Midas can only win in 7, which I guess he does. Yeah, okay. I guess just loses to 7. It's kind of close, though. Yeah. Doesn't quite get there. I don't know if I said the move right. I meant 8, 9, 8, 2, and 9. I might have said 8, 9, 8, 2, and 7. I meant 8, 9, 8, 2, and 9. I wish I could roll back the tape when I say things. So, anyways, great job to Sergio, Yevon, and DJ. I think all of them had really nice tournament runs here, and all of them have been really impressive. And then our 3 finalists, presuming DJ doesn't find something amazing here that I have missed, which is entirely possible. In the second round, I was eulogizing Sergio, and he found in this actually exact same structure, except there was a card in 6 instead of 4. He played a card in 6, the equivalent of 6, it was 4, with just like a high number facing down. It didn't capture anything. He had in fact given up the entire top row. Crescent had the whole top row, 1, 2, and 3, and Sergio only controlled cards in 4 and 6 and had no attacks on anything, and somehow it was a tie. And he found it quickly too. Really cool save. One of my favorite moves of the tournament. So I'm not going to claim I've checked everything here, but 8, 9, 8, 2, and 9 is the closest I found to a tie. And the problem is 6, 5, 6, 7 is too good a sweeper, so they can play 9, 4, 3, 9, and 7. If you could only play 9 there and not set 6-5, 6-7 up, I think it would work. I think it would work. Um, so our finalists, we have Seto, who obviously is one of the all-time greats, playing for his 5th championship ever, uh, becoming the 4th person if he does so to win 5. I think he was the 2nd person to win 4, but has been much less active than the other 3 since then, so did not maintain his early lead when he won Ward to win his 4th over Midas. Then we have Tezuka, who of course has already won a tournament in the return and will be playing for his 2nd one, and has looked really fantastic. Just played great. And then we've got Midas, who has beaten the toughest opposition to get here. Right? Presuming, again, that this isn't a tie, but 6-5, 6-7 in 7 here, and 9-4, 3-9 sweeps. So Midas will have made his 4th finals. If he does not win this tournament, he will become the first player ever to make 4 finals and not win one, surpassing Chickeny's record of 3 finals without winning one. And if he does go on to win, he's going to very clearly be already a pretty solidly ranked winner among that group, and that's a very strong group. Coming into this tournament, I had Midas in the low 30s all time. I don't remember the exact spot, but I'm curious to see where he lands after this. Obviously, like, Seto doesn't move very much because Seto is one of the top 4, and you can put the top 4 in whatever order, and like Seto's there, Does this move him up or down in that group? Might for you, might not. I will talk about it if he does, because I think there's a really interesting comparison to make if he wins within that group. So look forward to that. Tezuka could get a 2nd tournament. Tezuka obviously could keep rocketing up the rankings. Starting the return, I had him in the mid-low 30s, or the mid-high 30s, like 36th-ish, 37th, right next to Jadot. And he's up to like 20th, and could keep rising. And I have no idea where Midas is going to end up after this, but clearly deserves a pretty high spot. And is just, Smokes, Deli, DJ. This is a really solid lineup to have beaten. And to have beaten without ever getting in that serious trouble. Like, Deli had some pressure against him, some very real pressure, but I thought Midas navigated it really well. So he was under pressure, but also found ways to work around it. All right, I'm going to bring up the solver because I'm curious if there were saves after 2. My best idea was 9, but 9 is like an incredibly hard move to find, and I'm not actually sure which card I wanted to put there. So, very likely not actually a very good idea. But that position just looked really, really difficult after 2, and I would not be surprised if it was lost. So we're going to be bringing that up in a moment, and yeah, congrats to Midas. I think when you there's this kind of instinct to think like the best players must only lose to something spectacular. I remember talking to Slash of Time, who has a very good record. Slash of Time has a positive record against the group, not against each member of it, but against the group of me, Yojimbo, Delial, and Seto. Slash has a positive record. He's 6-5 against that group. Incredible record. And I remember after one of the times he beat Yojimbo, I sort of asked him what happened, kind of assuming he must have done something like spectacular. And he was just like, well, he played a corner, and I played something in the opposite corner that was well defended, and he just was in serious trouble. And it wasn't that there was something like brilliant or strange or exotic that happened, right? It was just the hands lined up and he played moves that were uncomfortable. And we all have those positions where we just can't find a move that appeals to us. And I think that's what happened here after this starter. We'll flip over to the solver. Is there wasn't something that appealed. And I'm sure the solver will be a jerk, as it always is, and be like, yeah, 15 out of the 40 moves tied here or whatever, or even more than that. But it won't tell you a lot of those paths are very narrow, and that they're like, it's so, when all of the moves look kind of bad, it's so difficult to differentiate between them. So it's saying that 1898 and 3 was not losing. So there must have been a save, and we'll go look at that in a moment. My alternative was 5768 and 3, but I'm not sold on that. All right, so DJ plays here. It's taking a while to run, so it's not judging 5768 yet. And I thought Midas should play in 2. If Midas doesn't have a win here, then 2 is certainly as pressuring as anything else. And we're left with a really, really difficult position to save. And I'm very curious how the solver is going to do it, because I certainly didn't find a save. How many saves do you think there are? We know there's at least one. And the answer is, drum roll please, 1. There's 1 save here. I had come up with the concept of 9. 9 is in fact not the needed square. It is 7. Now, I had an instinct to go for 9 for 2 reasons. 1, I saw that we could double capture from 5 anything in 2 and 6. And 2, I thought of 1898 as the card we wanted to take back. But taking back 8982, particularly with a combo, is just as appealing. So let's think kind of the same way, because I haven't looked at which card it is in 7. We want to go 7. We want to create a threat in 4. And we want to be able to double capture in 5 without getting comboed anything they put in 4. So we really only have one choice to set up combo threats in 4. So my guess is 7584. And we do control anything that would land in 4. Is this the move? This is the move. Yeah. So I only was looking at versions of this in 9. But actually, this is much more comfortable than the versions in 9, because if we did it in 9, to set up a plus threat, we'd have to use one of our more powerful cards. And so for some reason, I was queued in on 9. And this is another, like, what I was talking about with the Yojimbo example is, like, the way the best players lose is they can't find a move they like, right? It's like there are clearly many, many positions that a strong player is comfortable in. But there are some that just nothing will click right. And occasionally they'll just have completely miscalculated something, and occasionally they will face a move that is strange and brilliant and peculiar, and that will beat them, right? Those two things happen. But a majority of the games, it's just the opponent made good moves, and the position happened not to click with them. Now, this is a really difficult position, and I would definitely not save it in an actual game. But I think it's interesting here that my instinct was we should be setting up for 6, right? I wanted to set up against the card I had played. That was where, like, my instinct said that's the card I should have played with, right? And instead, 1 is the card in 3, 1898. And instead, the card in 1 is just as useful to set up against and easier to, in fact, do so. Now, these moves are no good. Like, if you go 9 here, or you go 7, the correct move, and they can go 4 and they're just, like, safe to you, these moves are usually just terrible. But here, my point with 9, but better shown by the better move in 7, is anything they put here, we control, right? We have double capture opportunities. And that leaves us in a pretty good spot. Yeah, this is just a tie. Right, something like this to end the game. Yeah. And so you kind of identify... So, I guess better said, how I identified it was each time I tried to play in 4 or 5, specifically 5, I thought, and specifically with, say, this card. There was a problem in 6. And I was trying to remove 6 from the game in a useful way. And I never came up with a line where I tried to remove 4 from the game, so I wasn't considering 4. Because, despite the fact that Midas plays this way and this is not winning. Was 6 winning? Because I thought he should go 6. Okay, but I missed a tie here. Whoa. I thought we needed to set up, and this didn't work because of... Oh, I didn't realize they plus everything. Okay, so this didn't work for many reasons. I thought this was a tie, but it is not a tie. It can't count. There was a hold here. Because anything here, you're going to simply recapture all the cards as needed, and they have no right power. Anything here, we only need to capture 2 things back. And the reason I didn't notice this is because we don't have 2 captures back here, but we do have captures back over here. And so either move an 8, we're not looking, and no, okay, so here we could play this way, but we also have these options to play this kind of way, right? And I was missing that actually 8 is really well covered by 7. And then there's the way that, one of the ways that wins against my line, right? The reason I thought my line didn't work was this move, which indeed is one of the reasons, but not the only reason it didn't work. But here, if you do the same thing, 6, 5, 6, 7 is dead in 4, so we can just play here. And if you do it with 6, 5, 6, 7, I assume we just take it. Yeah. All right, I totally missed this. To return to something I was harping on in recent videos, it's one of the reasons when you're playing, if you get down to a 4-move spot, like, you really shouldn't, I guess unless you have much better instincts than me, you really shouldn't be running on your instincts. You really should be just, like, brute forcing it. Like, okay, top card. Do I go there? Okay, I found the reason I lose. 9, 4, 3, 9 sweeps me. That's pretty quick to check. Here, same thing. Every move in 6, that sweeps me. Okay, that one loses. What about going, and you can do it pretty quickly because once you've seen this line once, you can just apply it to the other lines. Like, you do have to make sure they're not different, but they're not different. And then you check, okay, what if I stick something in 7? All right, what if they double capture me? They're up 7-3. I never have more than 1 capture and reply, so I always lose there. So the only one that has a chance to do anything there is this, because this doesn't double capture me, but this does, and I don't have multiple captures back, so I always lose there. Okay, 7 loses. And then you go, okay, 8. What if I stick something in 8? Against anything in 8, okay, this one obviously walks into this, this wombo combo, but I am never threatening to capture anything. So as long as they have a single capture on their final turn, they win. So this one easily loses, but for instance, something like this, I just have to make sure, does that 6, 5, 6, 7, I need to take something back, and I need that 6, 5, 6, 7 not to recapture me, and that's clearly not happening. Or in this one, I need the 6, 5, 6, 7 not to be able to take anything, which I guess does happen here. So this one I'd have to check slightly further and go, okay, this one, the 9, 4, 3, 9 sweeps me. And actually, that was probably the quicker calculation all along. Yeah, if you notice this move here, 9, 4, 3, 9 is always guaranteed at least 1 capture. It either captures the card in 5, or if you go in 6, it captures the card in 6. And they're up 6-4. You never have more than 1 capture, so you can't make it more than 5-5, and they will always make it at least 6-4 again. That's pretty quick. And then you're on 9, and you just have to check every move. And so my instinct said, this is the most appealing move, but I refuted it and stopped looking. Now, I could have refuted it multiple ways, but I didn't notice this one. I miscalculated this one. I didn't realize it comboed the extra card and lost, got that wrong, but did realize this was wrong. But I just got to check the other ones. And actually, one of the move 6 mistakes I've made in a weekly open was against Delhi, and we had a setup like this. It was a really difficult game for me, very similar to this game with DJ. Like, I clearly am not making the moves work how I want to, and I'm in the exact same spot DJ is, and I've kind of tried to pull together whatever I can, tried to grab a card where I can, like how he grabbed 2 from 5, but I have this just really horrible position, and there was just a strange card in 9 that I just didn't realize worked because I didn't check it, right? I looked at the moves instinctively I thought were good, but in a 5-minute time span, what I should do, as we've done here, and I hope I've probably more than 5 minutes now because I'm talking, but what I'd hope was like less than 5 minutes to do is go, okay, that one doesn't work. All right, gotta check this one. Okay, here they take me, and I can't recapture without 8-9-8-2 sweeping me. Okay, that one doesn't work. All right, I don't think this works, but last try. Oh, okay, that, I have the response. This doesn't capture anything, and again, I've already seen these ideas of if they go 6, I can block 8. Okay, if they go 8, I can't go 6, but I can go 7. Okay, we might be onto something. And finally, if they go 7, oh, it's so important they're dead in 6 when they weren't before. And just, I think it's a big boon to just know you have to go into pure calculation mode instead of playing based on your instincts. Because before this point in the game, right, you have to do a lot of pruning. You have to say, okay, here are the moves I can look at, and here are the moves I can't. And it's not that you necessarily lay out, here are the 3 moves I will check at the start of the turn. I think no one does that. But here's a move that appeals to me. Look at that. Okay, here was another move I wanted to look at. Here's a third move I've now come up with based on having looked at the first 2. That kind of thing is more how we actually think. Though how everyone actually exactly works will be a bit different there, and we're not quite as consistent in our thinking as that might suggest. It's going to be different each move. But when we get to the final 4 moves, I think we just got to check everything. I think you got to go into brute force mode. And for some players, that's too much, right? You don't have enough time to do that. But at the later stages of tournaments, I don't think that's an unfair ask. On the other hand, this is literally like the last move I'd check. I guess I'd check it before I check some moves in 8. But I would check every move in 6. I would check every move in 7. I would check 8-9-8-2 and 9 first. And I might take a glimpse at 8 and decide, no, that's hideous first. So it really might be this second to last move I'd look at before 5, 7, 6, 8, and 9. And I also, even if I did look at it, there's a chance I would go, oh, they can just play 8, right? And I don't have 6. And I would not even bother to think about 9, because especially after having looked at this move, my thought process would be, though here we have 7 controlled as well, but my thought process in these lines was we can meet anything there with a reply in 6, and that wins. And so I never checked for 7, and that might mean my thinking would still lead me to not really look for 7 there too. So even if you do get there, it is possible to miscalculate this, because the explanation you carry over from a different line would lead you astray. And as I've said, explanations you carry over from other lines are very useful. The reason we can get through moves in 6 so quickly is because as soon as we notice this move here, we realize it works against any move we play in 6, right? We don't really have to spend much time calculating these separately, because this idea clearly works so well against all 3. So you do want to be learning from other lines, but that makes it, in this specific case, even more likely you're led astray and don't find this move. So I think this is a very difficult 4 mover to find, but that also, I think, even more suggests how much, at least the top end of players, should be going for pure calculation at this point, because this is just such a hard move to find instinctively. And kind of, where does my gut lead me? And maybe it isn't hard for Seto, but what is? So yeah, I think this was, and as I said at the start, I lost a game to Delhi in a weekly when I couldn't find a move like this. So very much not saying this should be found, or that if you don't find this, you're garbage, right? I think this was a really hard find, but it suggests something potentially practically useful for players. All right, congrats to Midas. Nice game. I'm curious what led him to 4 rather than 6. Obviously, I did not see this line, so I would not have differentiated 4 from 6 on that perspective, but for some reason my brain said he should go 6. And when he went 4, it did make some sense, because it meant his weakness going to the right was less apparent. So it sort of seemed like, oh, that might be a better version. But I wonder, it's possible my instincts got lucky here, but I would. Okay, not sure what to say there. Because his move does look like it should be better, right? And it took a kind of remarkable connection of events. So I cannot claim I had some deep insight that happened to pan out. I don't think that's what happened. I think I got lucky. Um, and I think in practice, very hard to differentiate between these two moves. All right, we'll we'll hopefully catch as much of the finals as possible. Our final trio is Seto, who has been in all four three-way finals that have ever happened in the site's history from 2008 to 2024, covering a 16-year span. He has been in all four three-way finals. Then we have Tezuka, one-time winner, one-time finalist, many-time semifinalist, and has been in official tournaments. I mean, he's one of three players to have won an open official tournament in the return. I think at the very worst, you'd consider him one of the top 5 official tournament players of the return. He's been incredible, and he hasn't lost to anyone who wasn't top tier. Absolutely top tier. I believe his only losses are to Delial, me, Turds maybe Piggy, something like that. Just really, really strong results. No, he beat Piggy in the finals of TTAC. Yeah, I'm not sure, but just to say, he's basically been absolutely top tier, and Midas is having the best run of any of them so far this tournament in terms of who he's beaten. So really interesting finals. I also think I've talked about this before, so I'll try not to babble about it. Ties counting is very interesting, right? I could very easily imagine, say Seto ties Midas and ties Tezuka. Suddenly, if Midas and Tezuka tie, then the bracket presumably gets reset and everyone plays again. But suddenly, if you win that game, you suddenly won the title without having to beat Seto. So, are you not going to take serious risks in that game? If you do, there's a very good chance someone wins that game. And that will determine the winner, right? Now, that does, of course, rely on Seto tying twice, and I think Seto is very, very good at putting on pressure quickly and having a very good chance to win a match quickly. So that might all be moot. It is also possible one of them beats Seto. Entirely possible. But it's interesting to have a format where someone could win without the favorite losing a game. And that might lead to, specifically, a really tense game between Tezuka and Midas. Also, another situation that could happen. Let's say Tezuka and Midas tie. And let's say Seto beats one of them. The other one, if they tie Seto in the final game, will get second. But if they win, they get first, right? And if they lose, they just tie for second, third. That's not that different from second. I don't know if there would be a tiebreaker in that case, but like the cost of losing is very low there, and the bonus for winning is you just won the tournament. Well, the difference between a tie and a loss is very small. So in those spots, I think you also have to play a high risk type of play, which incidentally I am not capable of doing well. But I think these are players that are. And so that would be also a really fun potential final game of someone has to make something happen. They have to win on demand. And yeah, that's real tough to do. So, okay, going to be a fun finals. And again, congrats to the semifinalists. I thought they all did awesome. I was excited to watch them throughout. And I gave Sergio the most coverage. And that was a fun thing to do because I've covered the others more in the past. But I do wish I had covered a little more of DJ's games so far, but I didn't catch them. Alrighty. See you in the finals, as Waka once said. Titus once said. Well, Waka. That's a Waka quote. Yeah, that's a Waka quote. I know my FF10. Eventually.